Welcome. My name is Amelia, and today we're going to be exploring a concept in financial economics called political sensitivity. This is the idea that some companies earn meaningfully different returns depending on which political party controls the White House. Now, before we dive into the numbers, let's kind of talk about why political cycles matter for businesses and for investors. So think of the government not just as a regulator, but kind of as a monopoly with unique power over businesses. And so, for example, you're a US citizen, right? And as a US citizen, you cannot buy health insurance from, let's just say, a Mexican company. Even if it was cheaper or even if it was better, federal and state laws require health insurers to be licensed state by state in the US, effectively closing the market to foreign competitors. And that's the government exercising monopoly control over who can compete in that specific market. More broadly, the government is the silent partner in every American business. Every company from the local bakery to a Fortune 500 firm pays taxes to the federal government, complies with federal regulations, and operates under laws set by whoever is in power in Washington. So when the party in power changes, the rules of the game can also change. Like, for example, tax rates, environmental regulations, healthcare mandates, financial regulations. These policy shifts can directly affect a company's revenues, costs, and ultimately its stock returns. And so in 2003, finance professors Pedro Santa Clara and Rosin Volkanov published a landmark paper in the Journal of Finance called The Presidential Puzzle: Political Cycles and Stock Market. So their core finding was that excess stock market returns have historically been about 9% higher per year under Democratic presidents than under Republican presidents. And this difference is statistically significant and robust across subsamples going back to 1927. This kind of was unexpected for them. And so that's what made it so significant that the market consistently underreacted to which party was in power. So today, I'm going to walk you through how to test this effect for a single company of your choice using data from Yahoo Finance and the Fama French Data Library. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. So let's go to Yahoo Finance and let's go ahead and let's do Caterpillar. And so let's go ahead and go to historical data. Let's do, let's do one, two, two. Yep. Let's do monthly. We're going to go ahead and just and copy and paste all of this data. It goes to 1985. That's fine. Control G, special links. We're going to go ahead and delete entire row, highlight the date, And we're going to go ahead and do oldest to newest, expand. Perfect. All right. And so I'm going to go ahead and do cat for caterpillar. And so basically, if you had the subscription to Yahoo Finance, you'll be able to go ahead and click download, and that will be able to allow you to download the entire CSV file for all of this, but we don't have that, which is fine. Okay, so the data that we're actually going to be using is going to be coming from this library. So the Kenneth R. French, so Google that, Kenneth R. French Data Library. And actually, we're going to go ahead and scroll down, and then the Fama French 3 factors. Click the CSV. Perfect. I already went ahead and unzipped it, and then I'm going to go ahead and double click this. Okay. Delete. Delete that too. And this has data all the way from 1926. We don't need that much data. Let's go to 1985 because that is the date that we have. So 85, 85. Okay, that's where that is. And we see January. Okay, delete. Perfect. And we don't need these two columns. We're going to go ahead and delete that. And then we will copy all the way to the current date, which is 2026. Bada bing, bada boom. Copy. And then where is that? Yeah. Go ahead and copy this here. Values. Call this date. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and calculate these returns. So this is equal to current minus the previous months. And then we're going to divide it by the previous months. Perfect. And then when I double clicked that, it went ahead and populated everything. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy this column. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, January. I'm just trying to align this right here. Perfect. All right, so next RJ minus RF. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this minus the RF, which I'm going to go ahead and divide it by 100. Double click that. Yep. And then we're going to do RF. So it's basically this one, and you just divide it by 100. Okay. So this one is actually going to be the political affiliation. And so this one, we're going to go ahead and actually start we're going to list the presidents. And so basically, I use this Wikipedia page in order to look at the different presidents, the terms, the party affiliation, in order to build the Excel. So here I went ahead and I already pasted it, but you guys can kind of see right here um, the different periods, the different presidents, and I'm using 0 as Republican and 1 as Democrat. All right, so I already have this. So the 0 is going to include everything from January 1981 all the way to January 1993. So that was January 1981, and here is January 1993. And so just so on and so forth. Go down the line for every month. Uh, Label a 1 or a 0 depending on what party affiliation it is, okay? All right, so now that we have all of this data, we're going to go ahead and run the regression. So we're going to go ahead and run 2 different regressions to build up the analysis kind of step by step, okay? And so in order to do that, we're going to hit data, data analysis, and then regression. Now, if you don't see any of this, go to File, go to Options, then down here, Add-ins, and then hit Go under Manage, and then these 2 up here should be checked. All right, so just in case you don't see this right here. All right, so let's go back to Data Analysis, Regression, press OK, and then let's start over here. Okay, so now for our Y range, we're going to go ahead and do RJRF, Control-Shift down to include everything, all the rows. For the X, we're going to start over here, the market rate, RF. All right, and then make sure that labels are checked. And then, yeah, why not? Let's do a new worksheet. Perfect. Okay, so here, basically, the output shows that our R squared is minimally, I would say, showing that our company's return variation is explained by the market alone. And then over here with our intercept, that's our baseline return. And then the market coefficient, this is our beta right here. So this is our company's market beta. All right, so now that we have this output, let's go ahead and add a political dummy to see if it adds any kind of explanatory power, all right? So let's go back to our analysis. Let's go ahead and hit data analysis, regression, and then for our X range, we are going to add these 2. Okay, so Control Shift down. Make sure that labels are still checked, and then new worksheet. Press OK. And so now this output actually shows the 3 different coefficients. Our intercept, our market beta, or our beta, which shows our market sensitivity, and then our political sensitivity right here. And so this is kind of our key number. If we go back to this right here, it shows, this equation shows that if our theta is positive and is the t-stat is and its t-stat has an absolute value greater than 2, then the company earns statistically higher returns under Democratic presidents. Now, if it's negative and the t-stat is less than 2, then it favors Republicans. Now, for theta J, with a a theta that is great, that is positive, then that company tends to perform better under Democratic presidents. And with the T statistic, that's around 2, but doesn't quite cross the threshold of statistical significance. We'd say that it's somewhat politically sensitive, but not definitely. And within R squared, that's kind of like less than 1%, then the monthly return variation is explained by the market and political cycles like together, which is actually typical for individual stocks over like long time horizons. And so for any of the companies that you end up choosing, think is the theta positive or negative? Is the T statistic greater than 2 in absolute value? And what does it tell you about how that industry relates to Democratic versus Republican policy priorities? Just in closing, this framework is quite flexible. You know, the same regression structure can be extended to test other sensitivities other than political party. It can, for example, you can test interest rates, you can test exchange rates, for example. You can experiment with all the different variables to capture certain data. Um, so as long as you keep the RJRF here as your Y variable and systematically vary the X variables, the regression framework basically stays the same. Anyways, I hope you learned a little bit about political sensitivity, and thank you for watching.